Everyone knows Cleopatra as a beautiful queen of ancient Egypt. She is often remembered for her charm and famous relationships. But there is a part of her story most people don't know. She was not just known for beauty. Ancient sources, such as Plutarch, suggest that her true power came from intelligence, strong communication, and political strategy. She could speak several languages and understood how to deal with powerful leaders. At one moment in her life, she made a bold and unusual move. She secretly entered a palace, hidden inside a bundle of cloth, to meet Julius Caesar. Why did she take such a dangerous risk? What was really happening behind this moment? Today, you will learn English through the untold story of Cleopatra. Around 48 BCE, Cleopatra was no longer in control of Egypt. She was in a serious conflict with her younger brother, Ptolemy XIII. At that time, it was common for rulers in the Ptolemaic dynasty to share power, but in reality, they often fought each other. Cleopatra had once ruled with her brother, but tensions grew between them. Political advisors around Ptolemy wanted to remove her from power. As a result, Cleopatra was forced to leave Alexandria, the capital of Egypt. Now she was outside the city, without an army strong enough to take back the throne. Her situation was very dangerous. If she failed, she could lose everything. At the same time, a new opportunity appeared. Julius Caesar, one of the most powerful leaders of Rome, arrived in Egypt. He came to deal with political issues after a civil war in Rome. For Cleopatra, this was a critical moment. She understood that Caesar's support could help her return to power. But there was a problem. She could not simply walk into the palace. The city was controlled by her brother's supporters. If she entered openly, she could be captured or even killed. So she made a bold and unusual decision. According to the ancient writer Plutarch, Cleopatra secretly returned to Alexandria. She arranged to be smuggled into the palace where Caesar was staying. One famous story says that she was wrapped inside a large piece of cloth or bedding and carried inside, as if it were a simple package. This was extremely risky. If anyone discovered her plan, the consequences could have been serious. But Cleopatra understood that this was her only chance. She needed to meet Caesar face to face. When she was finally brought into the room, she appeared suddenly before him. This moment was unexpected and powerful. Instead of sending a message or asking for help from a distance, Cleopatra chose a direct and dramatic approach. She showed confidence, courage, and intelligence. She knew that first impressions mattered. For Caesar, this meeting was surprising. Cleopatra was young, but she spoke clearly and confidently. She understood politics and explained her situation. She did not appear weak. Instead, she presented herself as a capable ruler. This moment was not just dramatic, it was strategic. Cleopatra understood that Caesar was not only a military leader, but also a political thinker. By meeting him in this way, she gained his attention and respect. The result was immediate. Caesar decided to support Cleopatra in her conflict. This decision changed the balance of power in Egypt. With Roman support, Cleopatra was able to challenge her brother and return to the throne. What looked like a simple meeting became a turning point in history. At first, it looked like a dramatic gesture, but later, everything changed. In many stories, Cleopatra is described as a seductive queen. Roman writers often focused on her relationships with powerful men like Julius Caesar and later Mark Antony. They told stories about beauty, charm, and romance. Over time, this image became very popular. Many people today still think of Cleopatra mainly in this way. But this is only one part of the story. The reality was much more complex. Cleopatra was not just a figure of romance. She was a highly educated and capable ruler. She was born into the Ptolemaic dynasty, a Greek family that ruled Egypt after Alexander the Great. From a young age, she received a strong education. She studied subjects such as philosophy, mathematics, and political systems. One of the most important facts about Cleopatra is her language ability. Historical sources suggest that she could speak several languages, including Greek and Egyptian. This was very unusual. Most rulers in her family spoke only Greek, and did not learn the Egyptian language. Cleopatra was likely the first in her dynasty to speak Egyptian fluently. This gave her a powerful advantage. She could communicate directly with different groups of people in her kingdom. She could speak to local Egyptian leaders, as well as foreign diplomats. This made her a more effective and respected ruler. Her intelligence was not only academic, it was also political. Cleopatra understood the growing power of Rome. At that time, Rome was becoming the strongest force in the Mediterranean world. Egypt was rich and important, but it was also vulnerable. Cleopatra knew that without strong allies, her position would always be at risk. This is why her meeting with Julius Caesar was so important. From the outside, it may look like a personal or emotional connection, but in reality, it was also a strategic alliance. Cleopatra needed support, and Caesar needed stability in Egypt. Their relationship helped both sides. Cleopatra used alliances carefully. She understood when to act, when to speak, and when to take risks. Her decisions were not random. They were based on careful thinking and a clear goal: to protect her position and her kingdom. At the same time, she lived under constant pressure. She became ruler at a young age, in a political system filled with conflict. Members of her own family were also her rivals. Power was not stable. It could change quickly, and sometimes violently. Her brother had already forced her out of Alexandria. This showed how dangerous her situation was. Even after she returned to power, the risks did not disappear. She had enemies inside Egypt and outside of it. Roman politics were also unstable. Leaders rose and fell. Alliances changed quickly. Cleopatra had to understand not only her own kingdom, but also the complex world of Roman power. This required constant attention and careful decision-making. From the outside, people saw a queen in beautiful clothing, speaking with powerful men. They saw moments of drama and emotion. But inside, Cleopatra was dealing with serious challenges every day. She had to think about survival. She had to protect her position. She had to make decisions that could affect the future of her country. This was not a simple life. It was a life filled with responsibility, risk, and pressure. From the outside, everything looked like romance, but inside, it was a fight for survival. This moment was not random. It was part of a pattern. If we look closely at Cleopatra's life, we can see that her decisions followed a clear and consistent strategy. Her actions were not only reactions to events. They were part of a larger way of thinking. The first pattern we can see is her use of alliances. Cleopatra did not try to face powerful enemies alone. She understood that Egypt, although rich, could not compete with Rome's military strength. So instead of fighting directly, she chose to build relationships with the most powerful Roman leaders. First, there was Julius Caesar. After meeting him, Cleopatra gained support and was able to return to power in Egypt. This alliance helped stabilize her position at a critical moment. It also connected Egypt more closely to Rome. Later, after Caesar's death, Cleopatra formed another important alliance, this time with Mark Antony. Mark Antony was one of the leading figures in Rome after Caesar. By building a relationship with him, Cleopatra once again secured support for her rule. This was not simply about personal connection. It was also about political survival. This shows a clear pattern. Cleopatra understood that alliances were not optional. They were necessary, and she chose her alliances carefully, based on the balance of power at the time. The second pattern is her control of image. Cleopatra knew that power is not only about actions. It is also about how people see you. She presented herself as both a Greek ruler and an Egyptian queen. In Egypt, she connected herself to traditional symbols of power. She was often associated with the goddess Isis, which helped strengthen her position among the Egyptian people. At the same time, she communicated effectively with Roman leaders using Greek culture and language. This ability to move between different identities was important. It allowed her to connect with different groups and maintain authority. Her image was not accidental. It was carefully managed. The third pattern is her intelligence and focus. Cleopatra's main goal was not only personal success. It was the survival of her kingdom. Egypt was a valuable and strategic region. Many powers were interested in controlling it. Cleopatra understood this danger. Her decisions were focused on protecting Egypt's independence for as long as possible. This required planning, patience, and awareness of changing situations. She did not act quickly without thinking. She observed, analyzed, and then made decisions. The fourth pattern is balance. Cleopatra's life involved both personal relationships and political strategy. These two elements were often connected. Her alliances with Caesar and Mark Antony included both personal and political aspects. But this does not mean her decisions were emotional or random. She balanced emotion with strategy. She knew when to build trust, when to take risks, and when to protect her position. This balance made her different from many other rulers. If we look at all these patterns together, we can see a deeper truth. Cleopatra was not simply reacting to events. She was actively shaping them. She used alliances, image, intelligence, and balance to navigate a very complex world. Sometimes people focus only on the visible parts of her story, the dramatic moments, the famous relationships, the powerful scenes. But the real story is deeper than that. Sometimes, the most important part of power is not what people see, but what they understand. Over time, the world around Cleopatra began to change. Rome was becoming stronger and more organized. After the death of Julius Caesar, new leaders competed for control. The Roman Republic was moving toward a new system of power. This created a more dangerous environment for smaller kingdoms like Egypt. Political pressure increased from every direction. Cleopatra could no longer focus on growth or expansion. The situation required something different. She needed to protect what she already had. At this stage, her relationship with Mark Antony became very important. After Caesar's death, Rome was divided among powerful leaders. Mark Antony controlled the eastern regions, which were closer to Egypt. Cleopatra met him and formed a new alliance. Like her earlier relationship with Caesar, this connection was both political and personal. They shared common goals. Antony needed resources and support to strengthen his position in Rome. Cleopatra needed protection and stability for Egypt. Their alliance helped both sides for a time. Together, they built a strong partnership. But the situation in Rome continued to change. Another leader, Octavian, who would later become Augustus, was rising in power. He was careful, strategic, and focused on becoming the sole ruler of Rome. For him, the alliance between Antony and Cleopatra was a threat. Tension between the two sides grew. This tension eventually led to a major conflict. In 31 BCE, the two forces met in the Battle of Actium. This was not just a military battle. It was a turning point in history. The result would decide who controlled Rome, and what would happen to Egypt. Cleopatra and Antony faced Octavian's forces in a naval battle. The situation was difficult. Octavian's side had strong organization and support. Cleopatra and Antony were under pressure. During the battle, Cleopatra made a critical decision. She withdrew her ships from the fight. Antony followed her. This decision has been discussed by historians for many years. Some believe it was a strategic move. Others see it as a moment of confusion or misjudgment. But one thing is clear: the outcome of the battle changed everything. Octavian won. After this defeat, Cleopatra's position became extremely weak. The balance of power had shifted completely. Rome was now stronger than ever, and Egypt was no longer in control of its future. This was the final challenge. Cleopatra now faced a reality she had tried to avoid for many years. Her alliances were no longer enough. Her strategies could not stop the rise of Rome. At this moment, something inside her changed. Her focus moved from expansion to survival. Before, she had worked to maintain power and influence. Now, she had to think about what could still be saved. The situation was no longer about winning. It was about facing the end with awareness and control. This shift was not easy. Cleopatra had spent her life making careful decisions, building alliances, and protecting her kingdom. Now, she was facing a future where those efforts could no longer change the outcome. But even in this moment, she remained thoughtful. She did not react without thinking. She continued to consider her choices, even in a situation where options were limited. Her story at this stage is not just about loss. It is about understanding change. It is about recognizing when a situation has shifted beyond control. And it is about how a person responds in that moment. Cleopatra's journey shows that even the strongest leaders must face limits. And when those limits appear, something inside them must change. This is the moment where her story moves from strategy to reflection, and from power to meaning. Cleopatra's story is often told in a simple way. Many people focus on her beauty or her relationships. But when we look deeper, we can see a more complex and meaningful story. The first lesson is that not everything in history is what it seems. Stories can change over time. They can be influenced by culture, politics, and perspective. To truly understand a person, we need to look beyond the surface. The second lesson is that power often comes from intelligence, not image. Cleopatra's strength was not only in how she looked, but in how she thought, spoke, and made decisions. Her ability to understand people and situations gave her real influence. Another important lesson is that people are more complex than simple stories. Cleopatra was not just a queen, or a symbol, or a historical figure. She was a leader facing real challenges, making difficult choices in a dangerous world. Leadership also requires adaptation. Cleopatra had to adjust to changing political situations, powerful enemies, and uncertain outcomes. Her story shows that strong leaders must be flexible and aware. Now, let's practice speaking together. Repeat after me. I am more than what people see. My story has hidden parts. I grow in ways others don't notice. Try to say each sentence slowly and clearly. You can pause the video and repeat them again to improve your pronunciation. Now, take a moment to think about your own life. What is one part of your life that people don't see? Your answer does not have to be perfect. Just be honest. You can share your thoughts in the comments below. If you learned something new from this story, don't forget to like the video. And subscribe to Legend Stories English to continue learning English through meaningful and powerful stories.